Like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates.
China seeks region-wide Pacific Islands Agreement. Fsm Decries draft plan as threatening regional stability. Foreign Minister Penny Wong is promising to blitz the Pacific with a host of visits over coming weeks as Australia grapples with the fallout from a renewed push by China to dramatically expand security and commercial ties with the region. A draft communique covering security and trade sent by Beijing to 10 Pacific islands ahead of a foreign ministers' meeting has prompted pushback on Wednesday. Reuters revealed that China will seek a region-wide deal with almost a dozen Pacific islands, covering policing, security and data communications cooperation. A draft communique and 5-year action plan sent by Beijing to 10 Pacific islands ahead of a foreign ministers' meeting on May 30 prompted pushback from at least one of the invited nations, which says it showed China's intent to control the region and threatens regional stability. In a letter to 21 Pacific leaders, Federated States of Micronesia, FSM, President David Panuelo said his nation would argue the predetermined joint communique should be rejected, because he fears it could spark a new Cold War between China and the West. The ABC has also obtained a copy of the letter by Mr Panuelo, as well as the 5-year action plan on common development and common development vision that China's government has proposed to Pacific states, and verified the contents. The two documents not only lay out a plan to expand policing cooperation but also propose a new free trade arrangement between China and the Pacific, a new Chinese government envoy to the region, intensified cyber security cooperation and deeper cooperation across a host of sectors from agriculture to fishery and pandemic management. Senator Wong is due to travel to Fiji on Thursday to meet with top officials and leaders as she begins a regional push to cement Australia's position and press back on Beijing's most recent foray into the region. China has made its intentions clear. So too are the intentions of the new Australian government. We want to help build a stronger Pacific family, she said. I will be a frequent visitor to the Pacific, starting this week with a visit to Fiji as we lead up to the Pacific Islands Forum. We want to bring new energy and more resources to the Pacific. And we want to make a uniquely Australian contribution, including through our Pacific labour programs and new permanent migration opportunities. Multiple diplomats and officials said they were aware of Mr Panuelo's letter warning against the deal, and of China's push to rapidly strengthen ties with the region. But the officials said several other Pacific Island countries were also deeply uneasy about the document and were determined to resist Beijing's push. One Western diplomat predicted it could spark a round of recrimination between Pacific Island countries that recognize China. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi will visit 8 Pacific Island nations that China holds diplomatic ties with between May 26 and June 4. He will hold several meetings in Solomon Islands, which recently signed a security pact with China despite objections from Australia, the United States, Japan and New Zealand, which fear it could upset regional security arrangements and give China a military foothold in the Pacific. Beijing rejects this, saying the pact is focused on domestic policing, and criticism by Western countries was interfering in Solomon Island's sovereign decision-making. But the simultaneous Pacific visits by Penny Wong and Wang Yi, as well as the deepening controversy over the new pacts pushed by China, both highlight the way intensifying jousting between China and several Western countries is beginning to reshape elements of the Pacific geopolitical landscape. Shift in China's approach to Pacific. A region-wide agreement covering security and trade between China and Pacific Islands would represent a shift in Beijing's focus from bilateral relationships to dealing with the Pacific on a multilateral basis, and would likely increase concerns by Washington and its allies. The China-Pacific Island countries' Common Development Vision draft document, as well as a 5-year action plan, has been circulated by Beijing ahead of the meeting in Fiji. China and Solomon Islands have signed a framework agreement on security cooperation, a deal Australia, New Zealand and the US fear could open the door to a Chinese naval base in the South Pacific. Read more. It states China and the Pacific Islands will strengthen exchanges and cooperation in the fields of traditional and non-traditional security. China will hold intermediate and high-level police training for Pacific Island countries through bilateral and multilateral means, the document seen by Reuters says. The action plan outlines a ministerial dialogue on law enforcement capacity and police cooperation to be held in 2022, and China providing